Ever feel like you're stuck, like in a rut? You know that feeling when even your favorite show just isn't doing it for you anymore?
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. It's like the universe is sending you a not-so-subtle sign, like, hey, time for a change.
It's that itch you can't scratch.
Exactly. And that, my friend, is the call for reinvention. And the best part is, it doesn't have to be this huge, scary overhaul of your entire life.
Thank goodness for that.
Today, we're diving into Reinvent Yourself by James Altucher. But don't worry, we've boiled down a super detailed summary into the most important stuff, so you'll be swimming in wisdom fast.
And you know what's really cool about Aldrich's take on this whole reinvention thing? It's not this big, dramatic, oh, my life is falling apart, I need to change everything kind of thing. He's all about making it a regular part of life.
Yeah, it's like hitting the refresh button, but for your life. Not a total system meltdown, more like closing those 20 tabs you have open in your brain
Oh,
and finally starting that project you've been putting off.
ex-
But before we get into all that, let's talk about why this reinvention thing is so important in the first place. What do you think?
Well, think about it. The world is changing crazy fast, right?
Hmm.
Technology, jobs, even how we connect with each other, it's all constantly shifting. Reinventing yourself, it's not just about switching jobs every 5 years.
Right.
It's about always adapting, learning, and making sure that your life, both personally and professionally, stays fulfilling in a world that never sits still.
It's like, remember Blockbuster?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if they'd been like, okay, we need to change things up way back when. Instead, they clung to their old ways and
Oh,
what?
buy Blockbuster.
Exactly. And then you look at someone like, say, David Bowie.
Okay. Yeah.
He was always changing up his music, his look, everything. And that constant reinvention kept things interesting for his fans and helped him stay relevant for decades.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about keeping up with the times. It's about staying true to yourself as you evolve and grow.
True, true. Although 5 years does seem like a decent starting point, don't you think? To take a step back and ask yourself, am I on the right track here? Or do I need to make a change?
Yeah, 5 years, it's a good check-in point. It's exciting and maybe a little scary at the same time.
For sure.
But it gets you thinking, right?
Yeah.
About your skills. Are you happy with them? Do they need an upgrade? What about your relationships? Are they good for you or are they holding you back? It's all connected.
It really is. Okay, so we've established that reinvention is important and that it's this ongoing journey. But how do we actually do it?
Right.
Thankfully, Altucher doesn't just leave us hanging with this big idea. He digs into the how-to, and that's what we're going to unpack next.
Exactly. And in the summary we are looking at today, it breaks down into 4 really actionable things: defining freedom, improving relationships, finding mentors, and building those strong habits. Each one is super important if you want to reinvent yourself successfully.
Okay, I like it. So let's break those down, starting with defining freedom. It's something we all want, right? What's Altucher's take on that?
He's a big believer in having multiple streams of income. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's about not relying on just one source of income, which ultimately gives you more control over your own life.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the whole side hustle thing that's really popular right now. You might love your job, but you also have this passion for, say, photography.
Right.
So you find a way to make some money from it. It's not just about the extra cash. It's about having something for yourself, something you're in control of.
Exactly. And that feeds into that need for creative control, and it fits perfectly with this idea that reinvention is an ongoing thing. It's about constantly exploring new things and building those multiple streams of income and fulfillment.
I love that. You never know where those explorations might lead. Okay, next up is improving relationships. This one really spoke to me in the summary. Tell me more about this plus minus equal thing with relationships that Altucher talks about.
Oh, yeah, it's so interesting. It's all about being really aware of the people we surround ourselves with and how they affect us.
Right, because they really do.
It's like this. Plus, relationships, those are the people who lift you up, challenge you to grow, inspire you. They're your biggest cheerleaders.
And then there are the minus relationships.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we all have them. Those energy vampires who just leave you feeling drained and unsure of yourself.
Exactly. And then you've got the equal relationships, which are kind of neutral, like acquaintances, maybe coworkers.
Right.
But the big takeaway here is to focus on cultivating more of those plus relationships, the ones that energize and inspire you.
Because those are the people who will support you through those reinventions, not hold you back.
100%. They have a huge impact on your mindset, your goals, your ability to reinvent yourself and grow.
Yeah.
They're crucial.
It's like they say, right? Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Ah,
Having a good support system is so important, especially when you're pushing yourself outside that comfort zone.
No doubt about it. And, speaking of pushing yourself, Altucher has some really interesting thoughts on negotiation.
Oh,
And you might be thinking, negotiation? What's it got to do with reinventing yourself?
yeah, I'm curious.
But here's the thing. He picked up these fascinating tactics from a former FBI hostage negotiator. And trust me, they can actually be super useful in everyday life, even if you're not, dealing with a hostage situation.
Okay, now that's a curveball I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting.
Mm.
So tell me, what kind of secret agent negotiation tricks are we talking about?
Well, one tactic that really stood out to me is the power of asking how and what questions. So instead of making demands or arguing, it's about trying to understand the other person's perspective.
So instead of saying, I deserve a promotion, you'd ask something like, what are the most important skills for leadership roles here?
Mm.
Or how does the company typically evaluate someone for a promotion?
Exactly, you got it. It shifts the energy from this kind of head-to-head thing to something more collaborative. Instead of coming in hot, you're trying to understand, which can really disarm people.
Yeah.
Super effective in any negotiation.
That's so clever. It's like that saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Okay, what other negotiation ninja moves does Altucher have up his sleeve?
Well, here's a counterintuitive one.
Yeah.
Try to get the other person to say no first.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's about finding common ground. Like you could ask, do you want this project to fail? Or is this really the best outcome for everyone involved? The answer is obviously going to be no. And when they say that, you've got a starting point to find a solution that works for everyone.
That's wild. It's like you're subtly getting them on your side without them even realizing it. This is great stuff. Are there any other tactical gems we should know about?
A couple more. There's mirroring, where you subtly repeat the last few words someone says. It builds rapport and creates a sense of connection.
Right.
And then there's strategic silence. Yeah, no, it sounds weird. But giving the other person space to think things over can be surprisingly powerful.
It's amazing how these techniques, which are designed for these really intense, high-pressure situations, can be so helpful in everyday life.
Yeah.
It's like having a secret weapon for anything from like salary negotiations to even just deciding what's for dinner.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that core idea of reinvention. You got to be adaptable, resourceful, and always open to learning new things, new skills, to navigate whatever comes your way in life.
And speaking of skills, let's circle back to that 1% rule you mentioned before. The idea that small, consistent efforts over time can lead to huge results.
Right.
It's a powerful concept, but it's so easy to forget in our world of instant gratification.
Absolutely. It's like, think about it this way. If you get just 1% better at something every day for a year, you'll end up like 37 times better than when you started. That's the magic of compounding. Those small, consistent efforts, just like those tiny habits that Altucher talks about, they're the building blocks of real change.
So we've got defining freedom, improving relationships. We talked about mentors, building good habits, and even some FBI negotiation tactics.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What else does Altucher have for us on this reinvention journey?
Well, this next part is a little more, I guess you could say philosophical, but it's just as important as all the other stuff we've talked about. It's this idea of choosing yourself.
So that's something I can definitely get behind. It's
Yeah.
about defining success on your own terms, not by someone else's rules.
100%. It's about going after the things you're passionate about and really making your own fulfillment a priority, even if it means going against the grain.
Okay.
And the summary actually gives some great examples of this, like setting your own definition of what success looks like, going after a career that really lights you up, even if it's not the normal path.
Yeah,
And it's about putting your own well-being first.
I love that.
I don't-
It's about recognizing that you're the one in charge of your life. You're not just along for the ride.
Exactly. And that brings us to another part of choosing yourself that's super important. Having the courage to say no.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to be able to say no to things that drain your energy, to things that don't match up with your values. Remember those minus relationships. This is where setting boundaries comes in.
It's about making space for the things that truly matter to you, the things that fuel your passions and make you feel alive.
Right. And sometimes that means letting go of things that just aren't serving you anymore. Old habits, beliefs that are holding you back, even some relationships. You've got to create space for new things to come into your life.
You know, that makes me think of this quote from the summary. It said, many people die at 25, but are not put in the coffin until 75. The learning stopped for them early. Right.
Wow.
It really makes you think.
It's so true, though. Reinventing yourself is about staying curious, staying engaged, never letting that desire to learn die.
Mm.
You've got to be open to new experiences, new ideas, new ways of looking at things.
And sometimes those new experiences come in the form of little nuggets of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of, there's one from the summary that really stuck with me. It said, the IRS says that the average multimillionaire has 7 different sources of income. 7.
That's crazy.
It's wild. But it really drives home the whole idea of diversifying your income streams. Just like we were talking about before, it's not just about having a side hustle. It's about creating a life where you're not depending on just one source of income. It's about creating a safety net for your dreams.
It's about building security and freedom at the same time. It really is. It's like
Right.
we're always evolving, right? Shedding those old versions of ourselves and starting new chapters. That's what makes it all so exciting, don't you think?
Absolutely. Like we're all works in progress, always learning, growing, becoming more, I don't know, more aligned with who we really are.
And that's the best part about this whole idea of reinvention. It's not about getting to some perfect place. It's about enjoying the journey of figuring yourself out as you go. It's about being open to the unknown and trusting that every step you take, every change you make, every reinvention, it's all bringing you closer to a life that feels truly fulfilling.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into reinvention, taking inspiration from James Altucher and all his wisdom, we want to leave you with something to think about, something to maybe even kickstart your own reinvention journey.
Ooh, I like this.
If you could reinvent any part of your life today, what would it be?
That's a great question.
And to make it even more real, more actionable, what's one small thing, it could be tiny, that you can do today to get started?
I love that.
Maybe it's finally updating your resume, or reaching out to someone you admire, asking them to be your mentor. Or maybe it's just blocking out 15 minutes on your calendar to brainstorm that passion project you've been dreaming about.
Yes.
Remember, even those small actions, when you do them consistently, they build up over time. So embrace the unknown, trust the process, and get ready to open yourself up to a world of possibilities.